Live. Apologies for being a few minutes late, but we're both here. Good, after a bit of technical difficulties. So yeah, cold calling clinic is today's topic, which I'm always really excited about. We did this a few times, didn't we, Stephen, on Clubhouse, and it always made me laugh as well as taking away some good stuff. So hopefully you can all get that same experience today. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Jess. I'm a brand consultant. I help businesses create and maintain compelling brands that increases the sales, so increasing the profits and the revenue. I have a 6-step brand loyalty process. So if anyone's interested in seeing that and seeing what them 6 steps are, then please let me know. I can drop you a link to a video. These are 6 steps that my clients are going through today, and it really works. So if you're a bit intrigued about what that is, then please let me know. And Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself to people that may not know who you are?
Why not? So my name is Stephen Lerman. I own a company called Chameleon BDS Limited, which is an outsourced appointment setting, cold calling and prospecting service for those people that don't want to, can't afford to do it themselves, or don't have the resource to do it internally, and just don't like making phone calls. Then you can outsource it to me and I will do all your cold calling for you.
Perfect. It's such a talent, I suppose, isn't it? To have cold calling. Well, I see it as a talent because even though I'm an extrovert, I love networking, I love meeting people. Picking up the phone and speaking to someone at the other end of the phone, to me, it's a lot harder work. I like to, even now, we're doing this live on LinkedIn, and I find it so much easier than what I did when we did it on Clubhouse. Because again, Clubhouse, you're just talking to your phone. You kind of forget that you're talking to people at certain times, and you still feel a bit alone. But when you can see faces, that's where I really bounce off, off at what's going on. So I suppose, how do you cope with that? Maybe, and what are your opinions on that yourself? Because you're on the phone day in, day out, aren't you? More than actually seeing people face to face.
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I just want to acknowledge Becky said hi, and also Helen. And Helen said, "Hello, both. Hope you're all well. Looking forward to hearing some of Stephen's gems and his lovely voice." So I have this late night DJ voice.
James, I saw that as James at first, but that's just me. I'm recovering from a bit of the flu, so I'm kind of hyper on the James. So yeah, only Stephen won't be spinning any of his James.
No. So ask the question again, Jessica.
Yeah, it was just how you deal with, or if you got any tips for speaking on the phone in general, because even though I'm an extrovert, I do vibe off that face-to-face interaction.
So my number one tip, which is you use it every day, you smile when you talk, because when you smile, your voice sounds completely different. So if you're like, "Hello, Jess, my name is Stephen Lerman." "Hello, Jess, my name's Stephen Lerman." You can hear it in your voice. It's so different. You just ooze confidence. And, when you're making outbound calls as a cold caller, you've got to exude confidence. You've got to make out that you're the expert when you're calling somebody, because you know what you want to sell, you know what you want to say, and you know who you want to talk to. So you've just got to be confident. And don't take anything personally. You do not know what's going on in somebody's life when they say, "No, I'm not interested." You just don't know. You've got to have really broad shoulders and take it on the chin, put the phone down, go to the next number, call them up, because you just don't know who you're going to talk to and what type of conversation you're going to have. So every day is completely different. Every conversation is different. And I'm always polite, even when they've said no, because you just don't know. Because if you're nice to people on the telephone and they happen to need your service down the line, they're going to remember you because you're nice. There's nothing wrong with being nice.
Yeah.
Right? And as far as being nice goes, if you're old enough to remember the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze, God rest his soul. He was a bouncer, and he said, "Be nice. Always be nice until it's time to not be nice." But it's always, honestly, just be nice on the telephone.
I suppose it's like there's a couple of really good points that you made there. I love the smiling, because even when you did it as an example, your whole body language changed, and it does, doesn't it? And it kind of falls on from that confidence. And even if an act as small as smiling can give you confidence, can it? So If you feel like you've not got that confidence, or that's not natural to you, then just smiling could maybe give you that confidence, can it?
Absolutely. And as a message has come from Helen, she says, how do you handle when you are asking for the person you think you need to be put through to, and they say, will they know what it is regarding? So,
good question.
So here we go. So 2 things. Little white lie. Don't shoot me for this, but I always say yes. Okay. Yeah, of course they do. Because the person that's asking the question doesn't know whether you're telling the truth or not. So you just say, yeah, of course. I did this today for about the 3rd time, and somebody laughed. I generally get a groan, but I say yes, but only if they've got ESP, extrasensory perception, so they know they know why I'm calling. They're a mind reader. She just laughed. And she goes,
okay, yeah.
But it's really or say yes, I think so. Yeah, say so they say to you, Stephen, are they expecting your call? Say, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm sure they are. I've sent them an email. I'm following up on it. What are they going to do? What's the worst thing they can say?
Yeah, do you know what? When I've done cold calling in the past, it's not something that I do on a daily basis. And to be honest, I don't feel comfortable doing it. So I do it when I don't have to, but sometimes you have to, don't you? You have to cold call and get them sales in. And when I've been asked that question, I've said, I can't exactly remember what I've said, but maybe I've stumbled and said, oh, that they're not expecting my call or anything like that. And then you can even tell in their voice that they go, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'll get him to call you back or something like that. And then, don't you? You think, oh, I've just, maybe I've missed that opportunity. And but maybe what would you say to that? If you're on the phone and you think, oh, I've just said something wrong, and how do I backtrack? Have I missed out on this now?
Okay, never apologize. Okay, first of all, never apologize for picking up the phone and calling somebody. I'm really sorry. Yeah, just be positive. And what I always do is, right, so here's a tip. Let's go back to the very beginning. You call up, you say, so instead of saying, hi, it's Stephen Lerman from Chameleon BDS Limited, I say, hi, Jessica, may I speak to Una Doyle? And you'll say, yeah, can I ask who's calling? Say, yes, my name's Stephen Lerman. And then say, is she in? So always go back with another question. Don't give them time to then start asking you questions. And if she says, where are you calling from? Say, I'm calling from Chameleon BDS Limited. Is Una in? Is she available?
What about when you get that response of kind of, oh, well, I'm busy, I'm busy. I've got plenty to do. I've not got the time to be speaking to you, that sort of response.
So, so I would say, okay, when would be a good time to talk? When will be convenient? So before I want to come back and tell you everything that I want to do, I want 30 seconds of your time just to find out if this is the right phone call, or there's any benefit of speaking further. So you don't want to blurt everything out in that first phone call, in that first opportunity to speak. Okay, so you want to find out. So I'm too busy. Well, when will be a convenient time to call? And they'll tell you. Yeah, they should tell you. They're either going to say, well, I'm never going to be free, or they'll come back to you and say, well, actually, you can call me tomorrow, or call me on Friday at 3. Yeah. So then they've given you a time to call. Then you absolutely need to call back and say, because when you call back, you say, hi, it's Stephen. You said we spoke briefly on Tuesday. You said to give me a call back at 3 o'clock on Friday. So here we are.
Yeah. I like that, because even you can automatically think, oh no, okay, yeah, I've lost this by but it, like, say something as simple as that question of well, when is a good time to contact you or talk to you, and they say, well, actually it's tomorrow or next week, you've automatically kind of pulled that back in. But something I will mention, when you're saying Una's name, unfortunately Una can't be with us today. She normally is. She's been at an expo today, so unfortunately she didn't get back in time. But she'll be with us next week, so don't worry. But yeah, we're still going to go through this and answer any questions that you've got. So now we've had a few questions coming through. We'll read out some more of the comments as well after I've spoken. But if you've got any questions about what we're talking about, or any experiences that you want to share, please comment on the in the comments box. We'll see it here where we are, and we can talk about it. Also, if you are watching, if you've not got anything to say, but if you're there, just put hashtag live and we know you're there. We can maybe even ask you questions if we wanted to, or hashtag replay if you're watching this on replay.
Here's another tip for you, Jess.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Becky's mentioned, it's just I've always found it quite hard to get past the gatekeeper, even when I was the gatekeeper.
Yeah.
So the gatekeeper can be your best friend. Okay. So I'm always nice. And I always ask for the name, because generally I'll remember their voice the next time I call, and I'll say, "Oh, hi Jess, it's Stephen from wherever we spoke last week." "Oh yes," So even though they're a gatekeeper, they can be your best friend. So it all boils down to being nice on the telephone. Don't be shirty, don't be short, and ask questions, ask how they are. So I call all over the country, and I always ask, how are you? What's the weather like where you are? And I'll say, oh, because the common theme is it's grim up north, like in Manchester, where northwest where we are. So I always say that. And like today, I'll be speaking to somebody, and they're down south in Cambridge, and it's raining. I'll say, oh, well, you know what? For the first time, it's not raining where we are. It generally gets a giggle. You want people to put people at ease, okay? Because it's a lot easier to then start a conversation. And it all boils down to people want to buy, they just don't want to be sold to. So you've got to move away from that whole sleazy salesman, salesperson, sales lady mentality. And it's got to be more of a consultative approach. It's all about rapport building. The touch points have gone from 2 to 3 to maybe 6 or 7. Okay, so you've got to... It's very, very rare that you're going to make a phone call and close a deal first time, unless no one's going to say, "Oh my God, thank you so much for calling. I've been waiting for your call for the last 13 years. Thank you. I'm going to buy it from you." It doesn't happen. It really doesn't happen. That's the that's the unicorn.
It's a lot of pressure to put on yourself as well, isn't it? Because it's true, maybe we do kind of think too far ahead, and that pressure to be on a call for someone you've never met, never got built a relationship with, and automatically have them buying off you, like that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, isn't it? And no wonder in the past I've crumbled, and maybe people that are watching have crumbled as well, and with that pressure, it's no wonder, isn't it?
Yeah, and don't be afraid of rejection. If somebody says no, unless they say no, never darken my door, never call me ever again, there's always an opportunity to go back. Embrace the rejection, learn from it. And if somebody says no, say, okay, fine, I get it, and I'm not going to try to sell you anymore. But just for my own records, could you tell me why? Just so I know, and I can learn from it. Or keep it lighthearted. Make it. Keep a record of your funniest rejections. I've had some classics. Unfortunately, they're not all funny. But you've had, sorry, I was doing. I think I mentioned this before. I was doing health insurance. No, I'm sorry. Your service is no use to me. Why? I've got terminal cancer. Okay, so you can't go anywhere from that. So you just have to say, "Well, I'm really sorry. I apologize." Or can I speak to such and such? No, why not? Well, they passed away 2 weeks ago. Oh God, I'm so sorry. And I don't think people do it to be mean. I think that's just the reality. And especially the last 12, 18 months, like I was calling for a company, and about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I couldn't speak to the owner because they actually passed away from COVID. I was like, wow. You just want the world to swallow you up. It's just one of those things, but you just knock it down to experience. And again, don't take anything personally.
How often would you say that happened? Because you're on the phone all the time. How often?
Very, very rarely.
So if it's happened really to you, like, for someone like me who's not doing it every day, just doing it kind of, regularly, in other amounts, it's probably never going to happen, isn't it? But you kind of, well, like Helen's just said, I think it's managing your own expectations. And if you go up on that call expecting bad news or expecting rejection, maybe there's something there as well, isn't it? With how we're managing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm making hundreds of calls a day, every day. So I am going to get those extremes. But for people that are just doing it on an ad hoc basis, it's very, very rarely you're going to get those types of responses, unless you're really unlucky, And I started out cold calling, knocking on doors. So I've literally had the door slammed in my face, but you just got to pick yourself up, dust yourself down and move on to the next one because you're only one step away from a yes.
Would you say that's been harder then, with your experience, like either being at someone's door and getting the door slammed in your face or being at the end of the phone where maybe they're possibly a bit ruder because they can't see your face? You know what?
I would say it is harder face to face, but those types of responses have really diminished over the years. I mean, we're talking 1995, so what 26 years ago when I first started my sales career, knocking on doors. It was bad, you just feel dejected, and you get back in the car and you drive to the next building. But it's people are nice now. Generally, people are much nicer now. There's none of that animosity, and certainly over the last 12 to 18 months, things have changed. The whole world has changed. People are looking for deals, are looking for opportunities, are looking for sales, are looking to buy, are looking to grow, and we can help. We've just got to we've got to put ourselves across in such a way where people are going to want to talk to us or want to deal with us. So it's a completely different environment than it was 20 odd years ago. But again, it's not everybody can do cold calling. It's
so for some people, would you say it's not, because it's not like it's not for everyone, isn't it? And has there been times where you've had a potential client come to you and you just say, look, there's another effective way that you can do sales for one reason or another, whatever reason it is? Or would you say that more of us should be doing more cold calling?
So it's funny, so obviously we did both belong to BNI, but one of the things that Ivan Meisner says is that we should move away from cold calling. But cold calling is a necessary part of business. You should always have multiple channels, channels for growing your business. And I think that cold calling is definitely one of them. Not whether it's me that's doing it or you doing it, you're doing it yourself. You always want to be having that interaction with other people because you just don't know. You're talking to people on a daily basis, and there's always going to be an opportunity. But I always recommend having multiple, routes to market or multiple sales channels, whether it's social media, whether it's email campaigns, whether it's cold calling, whether it's flyers or whatever. Find something that works, but always do the other channels in the background on a lesser scale, because you always want to have multiple ways of getting new business. It just makes sense rather than putting all your eggs in one basket, for want of a better expression.
Yeah, definitely. And I think seeing more and more businesses merging the two, when you were saying, doing other things like digital marketing and whatever that looks like, putting marketing and sales together is so powerful, isn't it? And more businesses are doing that now. Like in the past, when I worked in house, that wasn't done. That wasn't the norm. Sales and marketing were very apart from each other. And with my clients, I'm on a mission to make sure that more sales and marketing are talking to each other. So that it's important, I suppose, isn't it, to see cold calling, see sales activity as part of your marketing, as well as, vice versa, and that they can link to each other and, take people on that journey through.
Yeah. I mean, one of my clients, it was a sales and marketing campaign. So they were sending out freebies, with all their logos on. There was coasters, it was mouse mats, it was pens, pads, anything with their logo on. So we were sending those out. That was the marketing campaign. And then I was following them up with phone calls. Actually, I take that back. The first part was me following up, making sure that it was the right person, right email address, right physical address, and the right person to send it to. Then we were sending out all the marketing material, and then we were following up with another phone call. So there was multiple touch points, and it's great because, it's so powerful having your logo in front of people as a continuous reminder. I used to work when I was out on the road. We used to have mugs, we used to have desk jotters, we used to have pens, the shopping trolley coins, everything, the logo on. It's so powerful because you use those types of things in on a daily basis, and it's a great reminder. Like I'll talk to people. Oh my God, yeah, I'm looking at your mouse mat right now, or your coffee coaster. So every day there's a reminder. So it's great. So rather than just having a phone call saying, "Hi, it's Stephen from such and such," to say, "Hi, it's Stephen from blah blah." Oh my God, yeah, I'm looking at your mouse mat right now. I'm using it right now.
Yeah.
Okay. It is, marketing is so powerful. Definitely.
I think even the opposite way around, like I love that example, because when I do cold calling, I get local magazines, local brochures, things like that. I look through and think, who can I add value to? Who can I maybe just give some tips? Who can I say, oh, next time you do an ad, do it this way instead. And having that in front of me when I'm on the phone, it helps me say, well, look, I've got your ad in front of me and I can see that you're doing this really well. And, so vice versa, the opposite way around, it works well for you to have something tangible in front of you, where possible, obviously, when you are making them calls, I suppose. Would you agree with that? That's a good kind of icebreaker.
Yeah, absolutely. For you, that works really well. I mean, I don't, as far as the brochures and the ads, it's different. I've got a brief, and I'm at a very high. I'm asking questions at a very high level, because actually what I'm only doing is I'm just creating the opportunity to put my client in front of the prospect. I say to people, the greatest analogy I can give is it's 10-pin bowling. I'll rack them up, you knock them down. So for me to start selling to everybody that I talk to would just be is quite time consuming. Even though I can sell, and I've been selling all my life, the route I'm going down is just the appointment set. So I'm just creating that need.
Yeah, it's that touch point, isn't it? We've spoke about it a few times when we've had these chats of when you're thinking of your consumer, your customer, your client, whoever that is, you've got to think of the journey, haven't you, and the touch points. And if you can make that touch point for other businesses, so the audience is building that trust before the business owner, the product or whatever comes in to offer the solution and the sale. Then if you're building that trust within them initial touch points, it is valuable, isn't it? And that's what someone like you can do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's multiple touch points. You're gaining that element of trust, and then there's a certain camaraderie before you get to the person that's going to ultimately make that decision, and it just makes the sale so. Just looking now what Helen's just reading what Helen said. So it is one
Helen
of mine.
Said, go on, Stephen.
It is one of mine to connect with local businesses. I do an hour 3 times a week minimum. I have never had anyone really rude to me. I've always ended up coming out with more information than when I started. Absolutely, i.e. the right person who's responsible, how to reach them, the best time, anyone else that is involved. Is there even a need right now?
Yeah. Do you know what? I love that. It'd be interesting to know, Helen, if you the questions at the end that you're saying, how to reach them, what's the best time. Do you have questions in front of you when you're making them calls, and does that help you? So you've got an avenue to go down if they do reject a certain part of the conversation. That'd be interesting to know. Also, Stephen, Helen's asked you, what is the best way of creating need? Have you got some examples?
So creating need with regards to, just explain that a bit more, Helen, if you can. Just what is the best way?
Once Helen kind of explains that a little bit more. Loose script. With you saying loose script, I wanted to talk to you about scripts next, because my opinion, well, I suppose not my opinion, but I suppose my role, if you will, with a client would be to get that message right. Give them focus and clarity on what they're communicating, how they can communicate it, what to say, what their audience actually wants. And then I suppose, Stephen, you could use that information to, I suppose you have a loose script template, but you can use that message behind that brand, can't you? It's inside your script. So we can talk about that as well if you want. But I think Helen's just elaborated a little bit more to get in front of someone, or the need for them to even listen to you. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So if to try and get somebody to listen to me, what I would say is if I'm talking to the right person, so I got through to the right person, I always say, well, we've had great success with one of your peers in a particular area or industry. Would you like us to explain to you how we did that and to see if that would be beneficial to you? That's always one, because if it works for somebody else, there's no point reinventing the wheel. If they've got a strategy and it's not working, but we've worked with somebody that's got a strategy that has worked in the past, would you like us to share that with you? It's not proprietary information. It's just what we've done that would help, that's helped them. Can we do that? Can we show you how it helps, how it could help you?
Well, like using the right language would help as well, wouldn't it? Because when I'm doing content, I do a lot more content marketing and, for my sales than anything else, because that's just what I'm good at. So I kind of utilize my strengths in different ways. But when I do type out the content and I'm thinking of ways to word things, I use certain words and certain phrases. And one of them that I keep remembering to use is saying things like, well, are you open to seeing this? Are you open to learning more about X? If you're using a certain language, that can almost get you the response that you want, or you think that they need a bit more as well, can it? Do you do something similar?
Yeah, and also it's also important as well, when you're asking questions, to use open-ended questions. Don't ask for yes or no questions, because as salespeople, we tend to talk more. When there's a silence, we tend to fill that silence with just garbage. I'll ask a question and I'll sit back and I'll wait. And then people will just start to talk because they're uncomfortable with the silence, and they'll start to tell you information. They'll just talk and talk and talk. And then you pick out the snippets of information that are relevant and pertinent, and you build on that. Then you ask the questions. But going back briefly to the script, I always go with a script. I start with a script. It's very important to have a script, because the script gives you an order. Because there's nothing worse than getting on the phone and not knowing what you're saying, and it all coming out all garbled, not making any sense. You fluff your lines, and before you know it, the person under the phone has got frustrated. So there are 3 things to make a perfect phone call. Okay.
Pen at the ready.
Yeah. A great product, proposition, service, or solution. So that's a great product.
Yeah.
A great script. And the third one, cheekily, is a great person on the other phone making the phone call.
Okay.
Now, I can only control one of those 3. Okay. But what I will say is, scripts are very important. Now, when you start for the script, I always recommend you role play first with somebody, friend, family member, whatever, just so you feel comfortable talking and reading. For the very first couple of phone calls, you're always going to be reading it. But I would always suggest and recommend that you try to learn it off by heart, so it becomes more conversational. Because I don't know if you've ever experienced this, when you're on the phone with somebody and they're reading from a script, and then you throw them a curveball, they're like, and they'll put the phone down because they don't know how to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah. So you've got to be able to think on your feet. Try and it's got to be conversational. It can't be reading from a script, because it sounds awful. You've got to be relaxed, be confident. You know more than the other person at the other end of the phone about your product or service that you're selling. Okay, that's most important. So even if you don't, you've got to come across that you do. Okay, because they don't know that you don't know it. Okay, but have a script. Always have a script. Okay. You want to ask a few questions. You don't want to overload people with 1,000,001 questions, because you've only got a few minutes to reel them in. Okay, because people are all busy, always busy. So you want to have some key points that are going to entice them, and then you're going to ask them, well, can we set up a Zoom call, or can we meet face to face? Can we have a chat about how we might be able to assist you moving forwards? Never try to sell on the first phone call, because you're hiding to nothing. Yeah, and I've done it. I did it myself. Only the other day.
Yeah.
I could feel him wavering, so I went in for the kill, and I got knocked back. It's only the first time I've done that. Generally, I was, I've, salespeople are only as good as their last sale. So you're looking for, you want winning numbers, don't you? You want results. And I was feeling a bit, my numbers were a bit low for the day, so I thought I'm going to try and just push a bit hard. Anyway, it bit me on the bottom. So I learned from my own mistakes. Softly wins the race, basically.
So I suppose as well, if something like that does happen, bouncing back and kind of, grounding yourself again to be like, okay, that's done. Let's move on to the next one. Having that mindset.
Absolutely. Rebecca's just asked, Jess beat me to it. I was going to ask, is face-to-face or phone more difficult? Face-to-face is easier because you can read people better, and it's a lot, it's a lot more difficult to, if you're knocking on the door and you go and see somebody, for them to say no, rather than they can just go click and put the phone down. So for results, I would say phone is more difficult. But again, it all comes down to how you approach each phone call. Excuse me. Stay away from the hard sell. Be more consultative. Don't try to push it and get the deal first phone call. Ask questions.
Yeah, I was just going to say that kind of, what I'm thinking of is when you're on the call with someone, I suppose that next step has to be streamlined, doesn't it? It has to be smooth. It has to be easy to do, because at that point, people don't, again, we've both been part of BNI. You've got that know, like, and trust. At that point, no one really knows, likes, or trust you. So you've got to make it easy for them to do that next step, haven't you? So I don't know, have you got any tips around that, how to end the phone call? If they are like, yeah, okay, that's great, but then you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting a yes. What do I do now? What tips have you got for that?
So really, you always want a follow-up action when you're ending a phone call. So it's whether it's so you want to make sure, number one, that you're talking to the decision maker. So there's no point setting up a second phone call if the person that you're talking to hasn't got the final say to sign sign on the dotted line. So you always want to find out. So ask them. Well, first of all, say, we'd like to talk to you again. Can we set up a follow-up phone call? Is there anyone else that needs to be on the call or be in the meeting that has the final say or has authorization to say yes or no? Okay, and we'll paraphrase that. And I've got questions we can ask that I'm happy to share on specific ways to say that, to write it, not to offend anybody, but also, to empower people, and also to, kind of suss out if they're actually the right person to talk to. Okay.
That would be good for anyone wanting tips on that. I'd recommend reaching out to you then, Stephen, and getting more information on that.
And also give them alternatives. So instead of saying, can we meet next week, say, are you free on Tuesday at 3 or Wednesday at 4? Give them alternatives. Okay.
Yeah.
So give them alternatives. And also, which I learned today from a gentleman called Ian, who is a serious social media and business development. And I can't remember which BNI chapter he's from, but he said he gives them false options. And he said also, if you give people 3 options, they generally pick the third one, the last one they hear. So if the one you want to give, if the option that you want them to take is the one, make sure it's the last one. That's the last one they remember.
That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
That is interesting. Yeah. And even the options, I suppose it comes back to that close question, doesn't it? If you say, oh, are you free next Tuesday? They can say no. If you say, are you free next Tuesday? Or are you free next Wednesday?
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah. Or what day works best for you? Yeah. What day and time works best for you?
Yeah.
Give people choices. 9 times out of 10, they're going to say one or the other. They're not going to say, oh, neither.
Yeah. No, that's great. That is great. I suppose how you were saying before how things have changed during, since the pandemic and since everything has, the world has changed. What's your experience been? I suppose you've been in business now for what, a year, 2 years? So you were at the mid to the end of the pandemic. So you being, you know, your business is probably at the back end of the pandemic, but just sales in general, you know, how much and what has changed since, you know, we've all gone online a bit more and things like that?
For me, well, I find it's actually been a little bit more difficult for me, because with people working from home, and you call an office number and the person you want to talk to is working from home, they won't give you the telephone number. So it's an email. So as opposed to normally I would make the phone call the first touch point, it's an email is the first touch point followed by a phone call. So that's been a bit more difficult, a bit more challenging. It's very rarely that you'll get somebody giving up their telephone number, even if it's a mobile.
Yeah.
So that's been a bit of a challenge for me. On the flip side, people are looking to engage more, buy more, use other services, looking to get back out there and open the doors.
Yeah.
So, on the other hand, people have been a lot more open. When I've spoken to people, they've been a lot more receptive. So there's pluses and minuses, but I would generally say my experience has been more on the positive, that people have been a lot more engaging. You know, they've been closed. Businesses have been closed for 12 months, or have been working on a skeleton staff or reduced output, and now they want to get back out there. They want to start bringing in more revenue. They want to be busier, and so people are a lot more receptive.
Yeah, and open to seeing what resources they can get hold of to help them kind of get there. Becky's made a good point. You know, we're talking, you know, what to say in the call and then how to end it and close it and things like that. But what's the best way to begin the cold calling journey? You know, obviously, Becky, you're saying that you would prefer to outsource because you're an introvert, which I'm sure other people will probably be able to relate to as well. But what would you recommend having in place to make the initial start, you know, with resources and things like that?
Okay.
So yeah, what would you say to
that? I would say before you engage in anybody's services, whether it's mine or anybody else, you need to understand the process for yourself and feel the pain and the success. Mm-hmm. So always try it yourself first, because then you'll truly understand what it's like for people like us to do it. And you might be out of your comfort zone, but don't. I'm not saying try it for months. Try it for a couple of days. Just to see what actually goes into making an outbound call. It's not just a matter of picking up the phone. I'm not a 100 call an hour dialer. There's no benefit to me or the company or the client in that. I'm asking meaningful questions. I'm having meaningful conversations. So it's all about quality versus quantity. Mm-hmm. And there's more to it than just making a phone call, because there's inputting information into a CRM. There's then sending a follow-up email or anything like that. So I would always say, try yourself first with a limited data set, if you will. Try it just to get a feel for it, just to see what's involved in actually making these calls. So you'll be a bit more sympathetic if you do decide to outsource it. So that's number one. Number two, you need to have a database. Okay. So I always, it's always good to have your own database. Okay, which is data that you've gathered over a period of time, but you need the senior decision maker name and telephone number, and if possible, an email address for follow-up. Okay, so it's always good to have a database.
And where would you access that database?
Right, so there's two options. So there's one is you grow one organically. So it's data that you've collected over the years. So you've been to expos, you've been to events, you've been to networking meetings, wherever, BNI, Shout, B4B, or whatever. You've collected business cards. You need to put them together. You need to maintain that database, okay? Or you can use it from LinkedIn. You can scrape LinkedIn, or, if you're looking for a faster turnaround, then you can always buy data. Okay. Now, the beauty about buying data is you can be very, very specific. So you can say, right, I want to talk to all the accountants in the BB4 postcode. Okay. I want to talk to all the accountants in the BB postcodes that have more than 15 employees and turnover 1.5 million plus. Okay. So you can be very, very specific with data, which is great, because that will separate. That will not separate. That will reduce the amount of time that you spend scrubbing for data, because that is very, very labor intensive. And really, you want to hit the ground running. You want a data set. You want a database. You know which areas you want to go for, whether it's market, service, or sector, what postcode, what number of employees, turnover, industry. You can do all that. There's people out there that do that for a living and can come back within 24 hours with all the information that you need. And I have somebody that I work with that does it, and his data is 94% accurate.
Wow. And that's all obviously GDPR compliant and
yes. So here's the other thing, which is most important. Because of GDPR, if you're buying data from a list, if you're buying data from a broker, these people have agreed to be contacted. Whereas if you just go looking online for people, what are the chances that they've actually they're okay with the phone call? They might get a bit shirty.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Yeah. I suppose for me, what I would say, is I completely agree with everything that you were saying, Stephen. But again, there's that step before as well, isn't there? Where you've got to have that research to know in the first place who you want to contact. What is it that you can offer them? How are they feeling? Before, during, and after. Certain aspects of the journey, or even in your product or service. Doing all that research about your consumer is hugely important, and making sure you're clear on your brand. If you've not, if you don't want to go in, dive deep into your brand, just be clear on your message, be clear on your consumer. A lot of the businesses that I speak to only scratch the surface with the information that they actually need to make a bigger impact. And the information that they have to pass on to other, say a business came to you, Stephen, or a website developer or a PR agency, whatever you want to outsource, wherever you want to go, you're going to need detailed research and detailed information for them to do their job to a high standard, aren't you? So for me, I would say it comes back down to that as well.
Absolutely. When I talk to my clients, I say, do your research, know who you want to target. That makes my job a lot easier. So I have better success when I've got a defined target market.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
It's the message is clearer, and it just makes it so much easier.
Becky had another question on there as well. Do you have call scripts, or do you just pull it up, pull off your experience, or do you have both? I know we touched on that a little bit, but do you have any more tips on that as well?
So basically, whenever I start working with a new client, I always say to them, we need a script. Okay, I need to know exactly what I'm going to say, because I need to have a clear message, because a clear message makes it easier for me. I know what I've got to say, and I know the points I've got to get across. So I read the script over and over, and because I'm making so many phone calls, eventually I don't need the scripts anymore. I know pretty much off by heart, and then at that point I can adapt, to certain questions. And when I get curveballs, I'm a lot more responsive, rather than just reading from a script and going, oh my god, I don't know what to say. So as time goes on, I become much more comfortable, and I don't need the scripts, and I can just not wing it, but I know it off by heart. So, but the beauty is because there are only so many different types of companies you can work with, because everyone's pretty much doing the same thing. So I just remember scripts and I adapt. I mean, it's not proprietary information, but a certain style of asking questions, I can incorporate that on my next client, or asking certain things.
So you can add your experienced flair onto whatever script you kind of get, can you?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Vicky's also made a really good point, which I think you'll agree, Stephen. She says, we always tell our clients that data is one of the most important components of a successful campaign, which I'd completely agree. Whether it's sales call, when it's cold calling or not, it is important. And the others are proficient callers and a detailed brief, so you're clear on what you're trying to achieve. Yeah. Again, another amazing point, isn't it? Having that brief, being clear on that objective, them goals. What is it that you want to get out of whatever activity you're doing?
Yeah, that's the three things I said to make it, a perfect circle. Yeah, absolutely, Vicky.
And your three tips as well. A great product, great script and a great person making the call, you know, and that great person's always got to be smiling, haven't they? That's perfect.
Of course. You know,
Love
when
it.
you pick up the phone, no matter what's going on in your own life, you know, you pick up the phone and you smile and you know, because people can hear it in your voice. That's the first thing they hear is the smile in your voice, and that makes it so much easier.
Definitely. Well, I know we've been going for 45 minutes now, and we've covered so much, haven't we? We've covered so much, and always great advice. And thank you everybody for joining in, telling us, you know, your opinions, your stories, asking questions. If you are watching this on replay, or you've got any questions now we don't have time to answer, then, you know, still be commenting on this feed. You know, we still watch it. Or message with us, connect to us. You know, if you've heard anything that you think you know, would really help you and you'd find really valuable, connect with us on LinkedIn, drop us a message. You know, we're always here to chat. So yeah, next week we'll be back again 4:30 with another topic, probably about sales and marketing next week. So keep an eye on the group for that. And Una will be back with us. We're hoping to have a special guest next week. I won't reveal who because,
Excellent.
you know, we'll still see if she can join us or not. But that'll be exciting as well. But yeah, so for me, I've taken so much away from what you've said, Stephen. Thank you for the tips. I've written them down. I'll be including them into my sales call. What would you like to maybe elaborate on or have as the final point before we jump off?
Let me see. What can I've just written? I've got a few things here. What's any tips that I've not focused on? Yeah, one of the things also is we never really talked about this, is finding a schedule that works, a calling schedule that works for you. Okay, so you'll find there's different times of the day when people are much more receptive to phone calls. And here's one for you, Becky: getting past the gatekeeper. First thing in the morning and last thing at night, because gatekeepers generally work 9 to 5. So try making phone calls from 8:30 and after 5:30 to 6. Generally, the business owner stays behind after or gets in early, gets a bit of work done quietly. And in fact, one of my phone calls for a coach, I ended up speaking to the owner of a business after 5:30, you know, and then he unloaded to the coach the problems that he was having, and that wouldn't have happened if I wouldn't have phoned after 5:30. He was sat on his own. He picked up the phone instead of it going through to the receptionist. So yeah, so sometimes it's best to start early and finish late. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Getting out of that 9 till 5 mindset and thinking when is right for you to get in front of that person. What is it? What's their routine? How can you slot into that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. It's a good one to end on. So
yeah. Have I got any more? Let me just think real quick. Have I got any more?
It looks like you've got loads, doesn't it?
I know. I've got loads. I'm just reading them off now. We'll leave it till next time.
Let's do another one. Let us know in the comments. Thumbs up if you want another cold calling clinic. If you feel like you've got something to add as well, some value to pull in, then let us know if you want to join us. You know, me, Stephen and Una here regularly, but we're always kind of open to having other people on as well and hearing other opinions. So yeah, let us know, connect with us. Great to see you all and speak to you all soon, and see you later, Stephen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jess. It's been great as always.